It's a familiar sight these days, eh? You're probably like, okay, where's this, man? You know, is this Florida? Is it, London? Is it Toronto? Actually, it's Melbourne. And I think everybody should be paying very close attention to Melbourne, Australia. The region of Victoria in Australia has gone full on Babylon, full on 1984, full on police state. And even though they've had a very small amount of Kobe deaths compared to many other areas in the world, including my home city of Montreal, they have gone the extra mile. They have really, really gone full on police state. So as you see here, the Guardian showing, I guess would be soldiers, police, doesn't really matter, right? Very dead. Army and police patrol the deserted streets of coronavirus stricken Melbourne. What kind of leaders want their own cities to be deserted? Well, it's most of the leaders that have been put in position for this massive scamdemic, apparently. And we really have to all step back and look long and hard at these people and trace their trajectories and where they came from and who appointed them and how they obtained their positions of power and who they're connected to. Because I think there's a really nasty element to a lot of this. So 36 hours after Australia's toughest COVID lockdown started, this Josh Taylor ventured in onto eerily empty streets. And they're talking about how bad it is and that nobody's going outside. Got a reflection here in the window of somebody who's buying into it. Very dead. Very, very dead. Super quiet. Somebody here who opened up their shop made $30. Wonderful. The streets of Melbourne are now empty, save for a steady flow of mask-up delivery drivers, construction workers, and police patrolling horseback or accompanied by army officers. And yeah, there you... Way to go. Look at this. 2020. And they say at this point it is cliche to compare it to a set of post-apocalyptic movie, but it's the most common reference for the few who ventured into the CBD. I guess that's the downtown region, shopping region maybe. Most shops are shut. A few have vacated entirely. Melbourne City Council says pedestrian traffic is down 90%. Melbourne Central, a major shopping complex in the CBD, is open but deserted. The few workers who remain duck into food court takeaways. The only sounds are from drills and cranes on construction sites and the occasional distant familiar ding of a tram bell to remind you that yes, this is still Melbourne. And then you've got the Victorian Premier. This is one character I would think deserves a great deal of attention. Daniel Andrews. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's watched a lot of those Nazi movies. I don't know. But he sure does love to implement this type of totalitarianism. And we've covered this guy, and we've covered Melbourne several times before. But he announced his new 6-week restrictions. They love their 6, of course, their 6s. Almost all businesses in Melbourne, save those essential services like food, pharmacies, and petrol stations, would need to close down. That's just wonderful. I'm sure that's going to work out really well for all those shop owners and all those employees. Andrew said it was the only way to drive down the number of cases in Victoria and Melbourne in particular. And there is I guess it's in the daytime. And I would imagine this is right downtown in one of the busy shopping areas. And there's nary a soul. Each day, Melbourne residents wait with bated breath for the new case numbers. I wouldn't put too much credibility behind those numbers. Usually leaked just before the marathon daily press conferences. Oh, isn't that convenient? Andrews has personally led for 36 days in a row. They love their 6s. Since the second wave began, the cases have been in the 300s and 400s, peaking with 725. And they say in Victoria, 181 deaths. I don't know. What is Melbourne? Is it like 4 million or something? Comparable to Montreal? 181 deaths. We all know, bit by a shark or eaten by a shark, hit by a bus, maybe hit by a tram in Melbourne. It's Kobe, of course, right? Car accident, Kobe. So how many of these 181 are actually, and how many of these people were, 90, 100, late 80s? Oh, those aren't important. That's not important, though. So now under stage 4, Andrew hopes that by driving another 250,000 workers back home, in the addition to the 750,000 already either working from home or stood down, the outbreak can be brought under control by mid-September. Face masks have been mandatory for 2 weeks. The Australian Defence Force now roams the streets. What did the Romans used to say about bringing the army in? I'm just curious about that. The Roman Senate was really... You couldn't cross the Rubicon sort of thing with your armies. Because usually if you bring your armies into the city, that's like police state. So, if you look back throughout history, we are in unprecedented times, really. So you've got the Australian Defence Force now roaming the streets with police door knocking, ensuring those who should be isolating after testing positive are doing so. Police presence is high in the city. And then shops are closing, people are being arrested, and it's a ghost town. You got to listen to the specials. This looks like a ghost town. Now, we've shown some of the violence that has been happening there, right? It's very, very disturbing. Here is an article off news.com.au here, which have a very similar sort of Agenda 2030 type symbolism here with their one world. People out and about. So the coronavirus Victoria, Daniel Andrews announces permit system. Where are your papers? Permit system. Remember way back in February when I showed Moscow, and that some guy was captured by facial recognition because he stepped out of his apartment. God forbid, right? He stepped out of his apartment. He broke the quarantine to put out what? A bag of trash. And then guess what happened? Police came. You have violated your curfew. People out and about for legitimate reasons in Greater Melbourne during Stage 4 lockdown will not need to show a permit if stopped by authorities. How magnanimous of them. And Daniel Andrews has announced a permit system for Greater Melbourne requiring people to show papers to authorities when they're out and about for legitimate work reasons. The year is 2020. The planet is Earth. The continent is Australia. The city is Victoria. This is what totalitarianism looks like, folks. Did you not think it was going to happen in your lifetime again? Did you watch all those Hollywood movies and think, damn, those people had it rough. We're never going to see anything like that. Think again. So he's requiring people to show their papers. This is what this thing looks like. How do you think this thing would look like in a Nazi uniform? I think he'd fit the part pretty well, don't you think? Staying apart keeps us together. Staying apart keeps us together. Staying apart keeps us together. This is what we call doublespeak. This is straight out of 1984. You are witnessing pure evil in your face every single day. It's just astonishing. It just blows me away what's going on. I hope people never forget who these people are. I really do. And look what they're doing to their cities. People will have a piece of paper that says, this is where I work, this is what I do. This is old-fashioned common sense. It's a piece of paper. Your employer fills it out. They sign it, you sign it. Forget about constitutional rights, folks. I'm sorry. I mean, the Constitution, what the hell is that? You thought you had rights? Where are your papers? You carry it with you, and when you're able to demonstrate so, there's not a sense of anxiety or a sense of having to tell your story 17 times. If you're pulled up by the police, you can simply provide that piece of paper, and then you would be waived to go on about your business. How magnanimous of them. Mr. Andrews promises the process won't be too onerous, with the paperwork to be made available by the Victorian government website later today. So from midnight on Wednesday, the majority of businesses in the capital will be impacted by drastic changes to how they operate. Most retail will shut down with the exception of supermarket, chemists, news agents, and banks. Meaning major department stores will shutter for 6 weeks. What? They don't get a buy? I bet all the fast food joints get to stay open. Large offices will have to cut their occupancy, while non-essential industries will have to scale down in operation. And just in case you don't get enough of your mind control, they're going to put the face mask on your trees with a heart to make you swallow it. Mr. Andrews also announced today increased penalties for those people breaching stage 4 restrictions, after police issued a staggering 172 infringements. Among the breaches was a man from Sunshine who allegedly drove 14 kilometers from his home to Melbourne CBD so he could play the game Pokemon Go. I'll just repeat this again. Among the breaches was a man from Sunshine who allegedly drove 14 kilometers from his home to Melbourne CBD so he could play the game Pokemon Go. 2020, planet Earth, the continent and country of Australia. The city is Melbourne. People are being arrested for going into the city to play video games. In addition, he revealed that 3,000 people who have been door knocked to check with compliance with quarantine directives, 800 weren't home. I can announce today a new on-the-spot fine. In fact, the largest on-the-spot fine the statute books in Victoria is $4,659, said Mr. Andrews. If you're wondering what this thing looks like, that is him there. I hope, Mr. Andrews, you get the justice you deserve. God, please help us out. Thank you. Ultimately, $5,000 on the spot spine, and it will be particularly for those who breach their isolation orders. You have breached your isolation orders. What, you didn't know that you had isolation? You have to isolate yourself. And you have breached those orders. You went into the city to play Pokemon Go. We're going to arrest you now. I showed the other day, too. I put up a video in which they were talking. I should bring that up, actually. Let's bring that up. Let's go to my YouTube channel here. Jeff C. here. And we will find the video because you should probably see it. Unless, of course, they've taken it down. There it is.
I just want to recap really briefly on what we're already doing because we have a significant commitment. We have Operation Sentinel, which is every day 500 police officers out and about, tasking, checking populous places, knocking on doors, a whole range of things. We have Operation Sentinel 2, which is the vehicle checkpoints, 8 vehicle checkpoints right around the restricted area, those permanent ones where we're...
Operation Sentinel, does it sound familiar to you? Doesn't seem to be popping up here, but I seem to recall Trump. Put Trump in there. Talking about Sentinel. I remember tweeting about it. And so what is a Sentinel? We'll just put that in just so people know. Sentinel is to watch over as a sentinel or a sentry, a soldier standing guard at the point of passage, such as a gate.
Checking the access and egress right throughout the state. We have Operation Shielding, 160 transit police officers, transit protective services officers, I should say, and 80 police officers from transit who are out there every day, and they're making sure that there's public assurance. They're checking who should be in proper areas, and they're enforcing as you would expect them to be doing so. And from our perspective, though, the people, the vast majority who are doing the right thing, need to understand for those who aren't, there is a consequence. And there are consequences, and I want to be really clear on that. In the last week, we've seen a trend, an emergence, if you like, of groups of people, small groups, but nonetheless concerning groups who classify themselves as sovereign citizens, whatever that might mean. People who don't think the law applies to them. We've seen them at checkpoints, baiting police, not providing their name and address. On at least 3 or 4 occasions in the past week, we've had to smash the windows of people in cars and pull them out of there so they could provide their details because they weren't telling us where they were going. They weren't adhering to the Chief Health Officer guidelines. They weren't providing their name and their address. Not providing their name and address, whatever that might mean. People who don't think the law applies to them. We've seen them at checkpoints, baiting police, not providing their name and address. On at least 3 or 4 occasions in the past week, we've had to smash the windows of people in cars and pull them out of there so they could provide their details because they weren't telling us where they were going. They weren't adhering. On at least 3 or 4 occasions in the past week, we've had to smash the windows of people in cars and pull them out of there so they could provide their details because they weren't telling us where they were going.
2020, planet Earth, Australia, Melbourne. Look at the uniform. Look at the slogan. Oh yeah, of course. They love their pyramids. Staying apart keeps us together. 1984, they didn't make you read that so that you would stand up to it. They made you read that so that you would accept it. It is 1984, which is happening right now. This is 1984. This is pure evil, what is happening. It's totalitarianism. They have thrown away all your constitutional rights, and they have implemented a full-on police state. And here you got this thing here saying that on 3 or 4 occasions this week, they had to smash through car windows and pull people out because these people weren't giving up their papers. Did you think you weren't going to see this in your lifetime? If there were repeat breaches, if they were particularly selfish behavior, like, for instance, going to work when you had the virus, then there's an alternative pathway, and that is, of course, taking you to the magistrate's court, where the maximum penalty can be applied can be $20,000. Mr. Andrews. This is Mr. Andrews. Everyone get a very good look at this guy's face and never forget what tyranny looks like. Never forget for the rest of your life. Stop watching your Hollywood movies and just look on your media and your television if you've got one. They're right in front of you. This is one of them. Now, check this out. What else do we have here? Dramatic footage here of a woman being arrested for allegedly breaching COVID rules has surfaced. In the video, her daughter can be heard screaming she's in pain. We've seen this play out many times already.
She's in pain. She's in pain. She says she's in pain.
I need to confirm your identification.
I have my ID.
Well, then where is it?
It's in my mom's car.
You don't have a wallet here?
No, I
Where's
don't
your
have.
mom's car?
It's close by.
No. You need to talk to me, okay? I need the reason why you're arrested.
He's, I guess because white lives don't matter. Is that what it is? Is that white lives don't matter, right? Because the knee on the head is not important in this case, right? Reuters, right? CNN, right? CBC, right? Because it's not a black life. It's not important. No, how comes nobody's talking about this video?
Your mum, and we're going to arrest you is because we can't confirm.
I was walking by. I was walking by.
Then how come she's told you that you're her daughter?
Yeah, she's my mom. I know.
Okay. Where is she? Where's your ID? Because you're going to be arrested if
It's
we
my
can't.
mom's car. There.
It's where? Over here. Is it walking distance away?
I don't know, maybe yeah.
You need to take this seriously because you won't be arrested if I can confirm your ID. You hear me? You won't be arrested if I can confirm your ID. Let me. Where?
You won't be arrested if I can confirm your ID. There's a point where you just draw a line in the sand and that's it. There's a point where it doesn't matter what apparent authority these people have or think they have. There's a point where they have overstepped every single right that you have. There's a point where it's just pure tyranny. There's a point where you just can't allow it to go any further, folks. You just can't. And I don't give a damn about people in uniform, because if you're in a uniform and you're going to partake in these Gestapo style police state tactics, you are a terrible person, and I hope you know that.
Tell me how.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yes, you are doing something wrong. You're out in contravention.
See, you're out in contravention. It's a beautiful day. It's sunny. And you're outside. You're not allowed to be outside.
Of the COVID restrictions, alright?
But I'm walking.
Okay,
It's
alright.
allowed.
I still need to confirm your ID, and you're going to be
What
under
for?
arrest.
I'm not breaking the law.
No, I believe you are, so I need to confirm your ID. How am I going to do that? No, you
Mum,
tell me.
stop.
You're the one being a smart ass about this.
Nice souvenirs. I hope she sues them to hell and back. And look at this crap on the side here, distracting everyone with their sports and garbage and celebrities, because they don't want you to pay attention to how evil what they're up to is. And look at these types of people. It's pretty simple. Wear a mask and stay at home, and none of this would happen. Let's get real here. They wouldn't be arrested or confronted if they didn't wear a mask. That woman was wearing a mask. That woman was wearing a mask. You stinking F-tards. She's got a mask on her face. Right there. You see it? So she's not even violating not wearing a stupid ass mask.
I don't know, maybe yeah.
You need to take this seriously because you won't be arrested if I can confirm your ID.
She's clearly got a mask on. There. No sympathy for these idiots who are causing this nightmare to keep going due to their stupidity and arrogance. I sincerely hope you get a strong dose of the karma you so richly deserve. It's as polite as I can be with these people or these accounts. If police ask you for ID, just give it to them. Unless, of course, you have something to hide. People need to stop breaking the rules. Now, Twitter makes sure that you see all the tweets that they want you to see. If you want to see the real tweets, you have to scroll right down to the bottom, and then you have to click the filter. All the ones that have been covered up. If you don't recognize how evil this is, you are a terrible person. That's all I can say. Whoever breaks the rules and play with others' lives deserves such enforcement. She's clearly resisting arrest. That's why she is in pain. The bruises are her own doing. Probably just government accounts, right? Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. They deserve everything they get. These feral animals. I feel sorry for the police for having to continually round up these idiots, as well as every other honest person who has been doing the right thing for months and has to suffer because of these clowns. This is what happens when idiots believe in internet conspiracies about sovereign citizenship and think that they can use the internet trick to get around the law. Good, carry some bloody ID then. I don't think that the average Australian is represented in these comments. I hope not. But it is kind of the majority of the masses, whether it's Australia or Rainbow Unicorn Land or United States. Most people are under the mind control of the beast, and they are become the instrument of the beast, basically. It's very hard to watch this type of stuff, and then you see comments like this one here. 7 p.m. and not a person in sight. Good job, Melbourne. Let's keep it up. I love you. My response: what kind of a person would make such a post? What exactly are you involved in? Is there a stage 5? What happens if Melbourne stage 4 lockdown doesn't work? Oh yeah, they've got a stage 5. Things could get tougher. It's just, you don't think it's bad now? Wait for stage 5. And then the further tightening could include closing all construction, further narrowing the definition of essential workers, closing bottle shops, shutting bakeries, all takeaways shut, restricting shopping to once a week, not once a day. Residents not allowed outside for 1 hour exercise. Roadblocks at all exits from metropolitan Melbourne. Hard regional grid lockdown, random roadblocks between suburbs, shut down all taxis with only skeletal public transit available, compulsory mask wearing in homes. Compulsory mask wearing in homes. Just let that sink in for a moment. Oh, isn't this nice? Montreal Pride coming up here. Furious doctor from Melbourne COVID-19 testing clinic lashes out at Daniel Edwards in fiery Today Show interview as he claims medics are relying on charities for face shields. More of your propaganda to go with it. So the whole thing that's playing out in Melbourne, everyone should be paying very close attention to. Yeah, we've got lockdown here. Yeah, we've got mandatory mask here. Yeah, we've got all this stuff, but you're not going to be arrested for walking down the street. The police aren't busting people out of cars and smashing their windows because they're not providing their papers. I haven't seen that yet. But I wouldn't be surprised. That's why I'm doing this video. The economy worsens. No SHIT Sherlock, right? Lights out Melbourne, a lack of footy. Only in capital sport amplifies city's sullen silence. It's just out of this world, folks. Here in Montreal, we had a big protest the other day. People going out and protesting against the mask wearing. Thousands rallying in downtown Montreal to protest Quebec mask rules. Protesters chanted Liberté as they marched from the main gates of McGill University on Sherbrooke Street. Thousands of demonstrators marched through downtown Montreal Saturday to protest against the Quebec government's mandatory mask regulations. The protesters, the vast majority of whom did not wear masks, carried signs and wore T-shirts indicating a variety of motivations and ideologies in opposition to face covering. Some demanded freedom, some were critical of the Coalition d'Avenir Quebec government, Premier François Legault, or Public Health Director Dr. Horatio Very Bad Boy Arruda, and others espoused various theories about COVID-19 and U.S. politics. And then they give some examples about people saying, I find it illogical. And here are some of the people standing up to it in Montreal. Congratulations. Good job, folks. And you wonder here if we're going to get the same type of comments. Quarantine them if they cross Quebec common sense. I'll just put the most replies here. And unfortunately, I saw the protest go by. The scariest thing I've seen for a long time. A scary thing to see a bunch of people out walking, right? It's very scary. It was traveling Trump show, the new Barnum and Bailey, only with a Quebecois twist. We can mock the Americans, but stupidity also lives in our own, lives close to home. Ernest Strictly. I am so confused why so many people are against wearing masks. The fiddler. Fiddler on the roof, maybe? It helps reduce the risk. We know it doesn't completely prevent it, but every bit helps. It's just a mask. It's not a chastity belt. That'll be next. I don't understand the conspiracy. That's okay. You just go and shill away, Jessica. Go play your fiddler. Go to the fiddle on the roof there, sort of thing. So you get the idea of what's happening. And you see, I hope that everyone sees how insane this is, what's happening in Melbourne. Fewer than 200 people dead, and it's a full-on police state. And they've taken away and waived all your rights. And they're smashing into cars to pull out people that don't provide their papers. And then they're brainwashing the masses into shouting people down. People are saying things like seeing people walk outside is horrific. Seeing people walk without a mask is the most horrifying thing they've ever seen. The most horrifying thing they've ever seen is a group of people that are out protesting. If it was Black Lives Matter, of course, it'd be an entirely different thing. Anyways, folks, hard not to get emotional when you see this New World Order in full bloom. I hope you understand how high the stakes are and how close we are to complete and utter tyranny. This is complete and utter tyranny, what's happening in Melbourne. And I hope the good people of Melbourne stand up to this and fight it tooth and nail and take this government to court and sue the bejesus out of everyone. And stand up to these scumbag police and army who are treating citizens like dirt. It's absolutely out of this world what's going on, folks. Please do your best to try to get this message across to as many people as you can. Share my videos if you can, or just share the information. Start the conversation if you can. Get this information out. we need to be as vigilant as we've ever been, or more. This is something that we cannot allow to continue, because we are looking at the destruction of all our rights. Anyways, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this. If you like my work, please do come and support me. My Patreon link's in the description. I really appreciate that. Shout out to all the patrons that support this show, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. I hope you had a nice weekend, and I hope you're not living in utter tyranny. All the best, folks. See you on the next one.